Hi, my name is Griffin Gower.
Mitch Messina.
Juliana Palacino.
Kelly Leanne Connors.
Kathy Fink.
And I am primarily into ceramics and ceramic sculpture.
I am an actor.
I am a freelance theater artist.
I am a singer and actor.
My art form is playing the piano, teaching the piano, musical direction, etc.
I would say if you really wanted to go back far enough, probably a junior in high school was when I first started getting interested in ceramics, and by senior in high school I was pretty committed to doing that.
I've been acting technically since I was 10. That's when I did my first musical, but I didn't really consider it like an art form. I didn't take it super seriously until around my sophomore year of high school.
I've been an actor since I was, pretty small. My mom is a director and my sister, a little bit older than I am, have always been in the theater. My dad doesn't really do anything, but my family's always been in the world of theater, and so I was kind of sucked into it at a pretty young age. So probably 13 years, roughly.
A very long time. I started when I was 19, 20, and I am 62, so 40 plus years.
Since the age of 7, and I am 61.
I don't think I was good at doing a lot of other things. My level of communication was very low at those periods of time, and I think clay became my way of communicating my ideas and my thoughts, where some of the traditional educational forms weren't working for me very well. I was not a particularly great high school student, but I just hadn't found what clicked yet,
Yeah.
My father plays the piano and trumpet. My grandmother played the piano, and my mother's an artist, so they always took us to concerts and played music in the house. There was always jazz and musical theater and classical. I mean, one day I might be listening to the original Broadway cast of My Fair Lady, and the next day Dave Brubeck, and the next day Beethoven, because they were very well-rounded.
I went to school as a major in psychology and musical theater, and I did not finish school. I ran out of money and I went into the workforce. I started getting work in the industry, and I just sort of honed my craft as I went along. I started out as an actor and a costumer, and I was hired a lot because it was a skill set that people seem to need to use at regional theaters and summer theaters in particular. So they would hire a big band of actors, and if you had a technical skill, you were kind of in a different category of being hired. So I got hired a lot in that way.
Professionally, I found my way into my art form through doing Addams Family at a place called the Rochester Opera House. And that kind of propelled me into being able to do other things, such as like a tour that I went on. And that it just propelled my career a little bit further than, some of the lower stuff that I've been doing.
Around when I was 14, I saw Les Mis and the movie, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to do this more often. But it didn't take, it took longer than you would think. Like I saw Les Mis in 8th grade, and then I didn't really start getting more into theater until my sophomore year of high school, where I quit basketball. So I had a whole winter where I didn't have a sport, so I was able to do more shows. And I fell in love with it. And that's kind of around where I started figuring out that I wanted to take it more seriously, and I started considering going into theater for college.
probably the biggest pressure is just feeling like you're inadequate. And I know that that's a pretty cliche thing for an actor to feel, is inadequacy, but it's true, you know? I mean, we spend our lives cultivating what we're good at, and unfortunately in America it's looked at as a lifestyle as opposed to a job. And that's what it is. All it is a job. But especially actors, we take it so seriously and so to heart that if someone gives us a bad note or tells us that we didn't do very well, it's a reflection on our person as opposed to it's a reflection on the piece of art that we just made. And the thing is that art isn't objective. It's not like you can, you know, you're not building a set. It's not to a parameter. It's a subjective thing.
When is the next job coming? When I do have work, sometimes I have more work than I know what to do with, and that is frustrating. But I feel like I have to take the work when it's available because you don't know when you're going to get another job.
Well, I think any of the art forms, I'm not just saying mine, but it's very difficult to know if you're ever doing the right thing. You know, that's what I love and hate about it, I guess, at the same time.
I think that one of the greatest pressures that all actors face is the self-doubt that comes as a result of rejection. Like, there's self-doubt all the time, but for me anyway, it really increases when I face rejection or if I get like a really bad note about something I've done. And that's something that's hard to deal with because theater is so personal, rejection feels so personal. Even though logically I can say, oh, it's not personal, you know, my logic kind of goes to the wayside, and my insecurities kind of trump that sometimes.
When you perform music, there's an expectation of accuracy. In the similar way, if you're an actress, you're expected to memorize your lines. Although sometimes it's easier to cover for a word change than necessarily it is to cover for a bad note that you might play. Mm-hmm. We would be happy if we got a 95 on an English test or a math test. But if you get a 95 on a musical performance, to you as a musician, you hear those 5% mistakes louder than the 95% of correct notes that you did. Mm-hmm. So there's the pressure to really be the best that you can be, because for me, I'm a performing musician and I perform every single week.
The only method I've found is to just work more. That's always the way to get over a hump, is just to keep making stuff. You know, I think that's a struggle. It's not easy. I'm going to be 60 coming up, and you know, anytime I'm on a low ebb, I try to force myself into the studio and just keep making stuff. I mean, I think that's the way you figure out your direction. And sometimes you just got to do the thing you do long enough, and it starts to become more valid for other people, just because you've stuck with it for so long, you know.
Yeah. That depends on who you ask. My family would tell you my methods are scattered and ineffective at best. I would say that I am a very schedule-oriented person, so I try very hard to compartmentalize things and put things in categories so I can move through them and actually accomplish things. I do a lot of list making and crossing off things on the list, and that makes me feel really successful when I can actually cross something off the list.
So one of the ways that I cope with that kind of just overarching idea of inadequacy in the theater is just reminding myself that you don't have to be the best. You don't. So I keep on telling myself that, like, where you are right now is what you are. And there's nothing you can do about that except progress further. That's all you can do, is say, I'm right here, and this is what my ability is right now, and the only way I can change that is to move past it.
In college, I took an amazing class called Performance Stress Mastery, it would be coping with performance anxiety, and it was everything from breathing exercises, visualization exercises, drawing. We went through it's a whole semester, so a whole series of activities that would help us build almost a bubble or a cocoon around us so that our focus, our energy could go out of the bubble or the cocoon, but we would not let the audience or other distractions get in.
There are a few different things that I've tried as coping mechanisms over the years, dealing with that self-doubt that comes with rejection. I definitely talk myself down when I see that I'm getting into that sort of insecure spiral. I verbally talk myself down, like out loud, and I think of instances where I have felt really confident as an actor, and moments that felt a lot better than how I feel at that exact moment. And that has helped. Talking to other people always helps, because the great thing about, the theater community is, it is like everyone has shared experiences and everyone goes through the same exact things. And so there are always people who are really good to just speak to them and they'll listen. There are always people who will help you rationalize things. There are people who give great advice when it comes to that. So definitely talking to other people is helpful as well.
I don't think that they've changed that much in terms of my coping mechanisms. I think the way that I've dealt with certain situations have changed, but not the way that I handle them in my own head.
I think time and experience does help, but I've always tried to work hard.
Yeah.
That's I mean, if you're in the arts, I think there's a perception out there in the public that it's easy and it's not something that has discipline or any of those other things, but it's all the above times 10.
The list making and list crossing off has not changed. That's been a staple. I do spend some time trying to breathe before I tackle something. I do spend some time with self-talk of, this is going to be, we're going to get through this, it's going to be fine, you're going to make it through this part, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. I often find myself saying that to people. I try very hard to communicate with friends during that time and let them know that I'm in a really crunch time. That interaction seems to be really helpful because it puts things in perspective.
I definitely talk myself down when I see that I'm getting into that sort of insecure spiral. I verbally talk myself down, like out loud, and I think of instances where I have felt really confident as an actor, and moments that felt a lot better than how I feel at that exact moment. And that has helped. Talking to other people always helps, because the great thing about, the theater community is, it is like everyone has shared experiences and everyone goes through the same exact things. And so there are always people who are really good to just speak to them and they'll listen. There are always people who will help you rationalize things. There are people who give great advice when it comes to that. So definitely talking to other people is helpful as well.
As I've gotten older, a couple things. One is that physically, I'm in my 60s now. I can't do as many things at the same time as I could 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I'm very careful to schedule fewer artistic events in a calendar year. There was one calendar year about 5-6 years ago where I did 12 shows in 12 months.
Oof.
And there were times when I'd have back-to-back tech weeks, or I'd be doing one show in the afternoon and another show at night. I can't do that anymore. I physically cannot do that anymore. And emotionally, I burned out. I said, I'm not enjoying any of it.
I was in a show called American Buffalo. And I was working with 2 equity actors at the time. And I felt really, really outclassed. Like to the point of it was causing me like severe anxiety and wouldn't let me progress in rehearsals. And it was unprofessional, and it was quite frankly bad for my health. And it got to such a point that I had to have a talk with the director about, like, I feel outclassed. Like, I feel like I don't belong here, you know? And I didn't. And even when the show was done, I still felt like, why the fuck didn't you hire someone, like, from New York or something, or from Boston? And I, you know, at the end of it, and I wish that I could have recognized this at the time, but I realized, like, if you're hired for something, it's because there's something that you have that they can't get somewhere else. And that's really important. And that's something that's really, really important to keep in mind when you're an actor, is that just because you aren't hired for something doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means that you don't have what they want. And that's okay. You know, someone else might find that in you, and you might have what they want for them. And so, you know, it did get better as the show went on, but there was definitely a sense of, like, I don't belong here, and I'm not good enough for, you know, this class of actor. Because, you know, I looked up to these 2 guys, you know, Peter Monson and Alan Mayo. I looked up to these people as not only coworkers, but, you know, as mentors too, of, like, I want to be like you. You know, I want to be able to have the breadth of acting ability and dynamics that you have. And so, yeah, I had to just put my head down and say, like, you are here for a reason, and even if I didn't believe it, you're here for a reason.
I had a job once where I was directing a show with some young people, and I was also supposed to be in the show. And I was completely overcommitted. There were some difficult personalities in the cast, and one of the cast members we took at the very end when we were scrambling to get a cast together. And he was somebody that I was told by the other person that was directing with me, the musical director, that he was very difficult to work with. And I feel like I'm somebody that can work with a lot of different personalities and still be successful. So I said, that's okay. I didn't realize how difficult he was to work with until that actually happened. And I ended up leaving that project feeling like I will never do that again. I will never put myself in that position again with somebody that I know is going to be difficult. I will choose to recast with somebody who's not as talented rather than work with somebody who derails my process.
So I have built a reputation over the past 30 years as being the rescue pianist. And that means that, oh my gosh, someone got hurt. Oh my gosh, someone got sick. Oh my gosh, someone double booked. Call Kathy. The best and most stressful example of that was Seacoast rep William Asher, who we all know and love. Tech Week, Wednesday. No, it was Tuesday of Tech Week. Wednesday was senior preview.
Okay.
Little Night Music by Sondheim. I'm somewhere on campus at UNH, and I get a phone call from Craig Faulkner, who at the time was the executive director. What are you doing? And I said, I'm hanging around Paul Arts. He goes, why? William Asher just slammed his hand in a car door and broke it. And it's Tech Week, and we have a rehearsal tonight. I have never played the show, had never played the show. I knew 3 songs. It's Sondheim. It's freaking hard.
Yeah.
I said, so I called Greg and I said, I need you to take care of the dog and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to the rep. I'll explain later. And so I walked into the rep and they're like, all panicked. David Kay was the director, so I didn't want to let him down. Stephen Descoulias had the lead along with Marianne Chow. I mean, amazing people. I knew everybody in the cast. And they said, what do you need? I said, music stand, stand light, copy of the script, coffee. And so they set me up kind of in the rep. So it was, we weren't in our little booth yet. We were kind of on the back row of the seats so that I could see the stage. And I said to the cast, I said, all right, here's the deal. William broke his hand. You know the show. You've been trained really well. I will do the best I can. Just keep singing. No matter what, just keep singing. I will learn the score tomorrow because I had no notice.
Right.
And so we made it through that rehearsal, and then I had the next day to practice. And we opened for senior preview, and Janae came. No, she came Friday, but she knew. She'd heard the whole story, and she knew that I, basically learned the show in 3 days.
Last spring, we auditions for Chaplin the musical, and I was one of the last people there for one of the characters at the callback. Like it was really down to one other person and me. And I did not get it, and it was really hard because I felt really, really good about it, and I felt like I left everything out there, and that I really couldn't have done anything more. But I was able to talk myself down. I was able to reason with myself that it really wasn't anything I did, and it like there are a lot of different factors that go into casting, and that it's not personal, and that was an occasion where I really did do my best, and I couldn't have done anything else, and I was able to get out of that sadness pretty quickly.
Well, I kind of always wanted to be a college professor. And when he first went to graduate school, they kind of laughed and said, nobody gets those jobs. It is kind of a pyramid effect, There's more jobs in the K through 12. It gets smaller as you go to college. It's like the pinnacle of, and they almost have you believe in that. But when I was just graduating with my master's degree, I had sent out, 15 resumes probably, and I got, 15 back. But I came home one day, I was painting houses, doing that. I came home one day and I got a phone call, and there was 3 people on the other end of the line, and it was a conference interview, which they had not contacted me ahead of time for. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I just got, off the 40-foot ladder, now I'm getting a conference call. But I didn't end up getting that job, but the woman was nice enough to call me and say, oh, you didn't get the job. And I said, what? I was just still in school then. I said, I got you on the phone. Can you just maybe give me a little help? I'm young and, just starting out. And she said, oh, your work looks like you're still in college. I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. I am still in college. But so I took all that stuff, that application stuff, and I put it in a box and I pushed it under the bed. And I just went to the studio and worked. Because there is a difference between, that and the work that you do in college and the work that you do as a professional. But basically what she was telling me, I needed to do more work, At least that's the way I took it. So I just put that stuff away, and I went and I started a whole new body of work at the studio. And so I just worked through it that way,
That's awesome.